Hello, Senior Stoner fans. It's the real Senior Stoner back at you for your Puffco Peak Pro dab of the day. Hello, everybody. Today is Wednesday. When I was a youngster, really until I was a 18-year-old, I got yelled at a great deal by my father. I was beaten a lot. He was a corporal punisher. But he had a huge, horrible temper. My mother didn't have a temper at all. My sister didn't have a temper. I didn't have a temper. But he had a monster temper. So it stayed with me. I'm 63 years old, and I've been told that unfortunately the way he dealt with me really made me who I am, if that makes any sense. So I want to talk today about your temper. That's right. You might not think about it too often. You might not remember parents, caregivers, how they were angry, what they did when they were angry, when you were a child. But if they had tempers and they were mean, probably stuck with you. How your parents expressed anger, their own anger, might have also taught you things as well. That the emotion should be avoided. That it's bad, or that someone always gets hurt when it's expressed. In other words, your childhood, my childhood experiences may have created lasting emotional wounds that alter adult relationships today. You see, when you're angry, stress hormones flood your body, shutting down the rational part of your brain. Think about arguments. Think about when it goes off the rails, okay? You may run and hide or attack and deny, depending on your upbringing. But more often than not, the autopilot response to anger you've been stuck on since you were a kid is hurting you. So we've got to change this behavior if our anger is manifest with a bad temper. Because you know what the good news is? Remember, we live a cyclical world, like a Ferris wheel. So when you come around to the top, two things happen: hope and opportunity. I believe that if you can get your fingers on the windowsill, you can get your body into the window. So thankfully, wounds like these type of wounds, emotional things, can heal. And by learning a few things about anger, we can find better ways of addressing that emotion. There are some things to know about anger caused by emotional wounds, and maybe how to prevent it from controlling our lives. Let's discuss. Well, suppressed anger is truly like a volcano. Okay? It really is. Because anger can make others comfortable or frightened. So your parents may have encouraged us to bottle up rather than let it out. Think about it. But the problem with suppression, unfortunately, is that it creates a mountain of explosive feelings that can eventually erupt in harmful ways that you can't control. From physical illness and depression to actual self-defeating behavior. You see, our anger is trying to talk to us. Anger is the brain's way of telling you that something upsets you. Well, if someone says or does something that angers you, and you ignore your feelings, you're also ignoring the trigger. If something's important enough to you that it causes the emotion, it's obviously too significant to be dismissed. You see, just like an illness, the first way to get healthy is to understand and admit you have an illness. You've got to listen to what your anger is saying. And you've got to listen to what your body tells you when you're angry. Our bodies are speaking to us. Anger often develops so quickly and intensely that it's hard to recognize you're even feeling anger before you react. Think about it. Boom, done. But by learning to recognize what anger does to our bodies, makes our face hot, creates pressure in the neck, Just as an example, we'll be able to create a space between the trigger that makes us angry and the reaction of actually being angry. You see, reactions can be controlled. Ta-da! So, somebody says something hurtful, a romantic partner seems remote, a child's cranky. Any of these things and many more can spark a reaction, one that drives us to respond in a damaging way. It may not seem like it now, but it's possible to manage your reaction to the triggers. We do it by controlling the impulse response. That is right. It's called an impulsive response. Well, we can consider the situation and choose to speak or act in ways that better serve us. So, we control the impulsive response. You hit me, I hit you back. We control that. You hit me, I go, you hit me. We got to talk about it. You change the response. But we have to give credit where credit is due. We have to own it. Our childhood is still making us angry. Think of the scenario as a kid. The dad would look at your homework after dinner while enjoying one or two of his beers or a drink of the night. But he always found something wrong with and would insult you by saying you're stupid and you're lazy. So instead of dismissing dad as an alcoholic, because as a child you don't know this, you developed a fear of being criticized and a belief that all criticism is demeaning. Me. As an adult, when my boss asked me to redo a report that had errors, I responded with fear, anger, because that triggered my reaction the same way when my dad yelled at me for doing the homework the wrong way. You see, I call it a black cloud. I found a black cloud wherever I went because my childhood was making me angry. Well, reactivity can quietly destroy relationships. We must be careful. When you try to talk to your partner while either of you is reactive, nothing is gained. You talk over each other, or you only talk about what you can say next to win the argument. In the end, you both lose because no one's listening. You're all just arguing to win. That kind of reactivity can lead to a relationship where one or both people walk on eggshells for fear of causing a fight constantly, while the problems underlying the heated exchanges are never even dealt with. You see, these things have to be nipped in the bud also. You cannot continue down the road if it's incorrect. How do we do it? How do we find a way? We must be mindful. We must use mindfulness, which is the opposite of reactivity, because good relationships just don't happen by accident. Anger handled in an unhealthy way keeps you and those you love from getting what you need or want from life and from each other. Mindfulness is the key to unlocking healthier reactions to triggers and anger, because mindfulness is the opposite of reactivity. With all this information, how do we move forward? Well, the first step is changing the way we interact with others. That's right. We need to identify problems early and accept responsibility. We need to look at ourselves honestly and do a mindful review of the role that anger plays in our relationships with people. Then we can begin the process of learning how to access and process our feelings. When we commit ourselves to changing the way we think and behave, we truly will take power back over our life. And by using mindfulness or any other tool you have to repair emotional wounds, we can move forward in a spirit of forgiveness and gratitude. These things are critical. You see, how many times have you been told, oh, I have a bad temper. Oh, watch out, that person has a bad temper. Oh, he has a terrible temper. Well, you know what? We need to get a hold of these things. We need to understand that problems like this don't go away. Your temper is your temper. Okay? Well, guess what? Got to find a way to deal with it. Okay? You cannot hurt others. You must find a way, if you have one, most people do, to deal with your temper. Now remember, a lot of this hostility stuff happens spontaneously in the middle of a situation. So what we have to do is kind of work out like you're working out in the gym before the game. We have to find ways, practical ways, maybe even practice them, to keep ourselves from being triggered. Once you know what the triggers are, we've got to find a way to keep ourselves from being triggered. If you enjoyed today's discussion on temper and how to work through it and how to get more out of our lives, even though we have tempers, subscribe to Senior Stoner on YouTube. If you want to comment, shoot me a comment. As you all know by now, I reply to everyone. This has been The Real Senior Stoner. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, everybody. Cheers. Cheers, everybody. Have a great one.